Uh, Hello, everybody. We are just 1 minute from getting started. We are waiting for our first speaker of the day to log in. While we wait, may I ask Zenabu to go over the basic logistics of connecting and finding your translation. Zenabu?
Bonjour, parfait. Good morning. Bonjour Charles, tu m'entends?
Oui, Seynabou, c'est bon, on t'entend.
Oui. L'interprétation, c'est bon?
Tout est OK.
OK. Et le problème technique aussi?
C'est bon, c'est réglé.
OK, merci. OK, we can get started then.
Do you want to tell people everything they need to know about interpretation and how to connect and all these questions?
Okay, I can do that.
Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Donc pour les francophones, bonjour, merci d'être là. Donc en bas de votre écran, vous avez l'icône interprétation. Donc vous cliquez et choisissez la langue de votre choix. Voilà. So good morning, afternoon, everyone. So down your screen, you have the interpretation icon. So you click on it and choose the language of your choice so you can follow easily the live session. Thank you.
All right. Charles, would it be possible at some point to allow me to share my video? And
Yes.
that be true of the same speaker as well.
Okay, go ahead.
All right. Okay, so let me just check first that our speaker, the first speaker is already on. His name is Jean-Moïse, and I think it would be useful for Charles to enable his video as well. I don't see Jean-Moïse on the side yet. Jean-Moïse, if you are on, can you just unmute yourself and say hello so that we can get started?
Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Okay, thank you. All right, so today is week 3 in our training. I'd like to, following everybody else, wish you an African welcome, Akwaba, Nangadef, etc. Okay, so today is week 3 in our training on youth employment and the digital economy and the role it can play to provide jobs for youth. And so, as in previous sessions, I'm going to go through a brief overview of the course and how it's been organized. I want to acknowledge the IDEP that is bringing us together. The IDEP is the African Institute for Development, Economic Development and Planning, and they are organizing this course through their Department of Research and Training. So the director is Dr. Bakari Dosso, an economist and statistician, and behind him he has a very strong team that is going to be with us through the course and behind the course. So many questions that we have with IT or the testing later or the resources on the platforms are going to be resolved through that team. In addition to the conveners, per se, we have you, which is the audience, and the audience plays a vital role in this course because you are going to participate very actively with your questions, with your insights, and so we look forward to continued interaction and involvement of the audience. And then the third layer is the trainers. In the past 2 sessions, as well as today, we have 3 main trainers that have been with you Juan Han is not with us today because he had to travel in an emergency to China. Amandine Yanugo is with us, and so will I. But today, the first speaker of the day, is a special guest, and we brought him today because of his unique experience.
Mais suivons rien en français, s'il vous plaît.
Bonjour, vous avez l'interprétation en bas de votre écran, d'accord?
Oui, nous l'avons fait, mais les sons ne sortent pas.
Bon, attendez.
Nous suivons juste en anglais.
Mais il faut cliquer sur l'interprétation. Charles, tu peux régler le son de l'interprétation, s'il te plaît?
Ok, d'accord. Allez-y, je vais vérifier en même temps.
OK.
Okay. And Charles, while you are there, my video is not showing. I just see the name. Is there any reason why the video is not showing? It's not a big deal, but it would be best if the speaker's video could be seen.
Pour la vidéo, c'est OK. Les sons sortent maintenant aussi. Merci.
Vous me voyez? Parce que je vois pas mon image.
No.
Okay. So I'm
C'est
not sure.
bon,
Maybe.
c'est bon maintenant.
Oui, maintenant c'est bon. Et nous voyons la page spécial guest. Special guest.
Okay. So the special guest today is someone with great expertise in the topic that we are going to study today, which is entrepreneurship. Jean-Moïse Ndo is with Enertrag, which is a European group that is specializing in providing electricity uniquely from renewable sources. He's a leader in strategy and forward thinking. He has over 20 years of experience in leading projects in Africa and throughout Europe in helping countries go through their energy transition. But most important for us is an expert in personal development and entrepreneurship, and is very, very much interested in sort of gazing into the future. I would reference one of the documents that he's been writing recently, which is The Citizens of Tomorrow. How do we train citizens of tomorrow in a context of industrial education and religious transformation? And so it is with great pleasure that I am going to invite Mr. Jean-Moïse Ndo to present the first module of today, which is going to focus on entrepreneurship. And so I'm going to stop my share and allow Jean-Moïse to get started with his presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Perfect. Good morning, everybody. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes.
Perfect. I cannot open my camera, but I guess it should be okay. So
Toujours difficilement.
Sorry, Elodie.
J'ai dit le français, notre français, nous l'attendons difficilement encore. Peut-être vous pouvez encore approcher les micros ou...
S'il y a un problème, il faut l'écrire dans le chat. Il ne faut pas interrompre, s'il vous plaît.
Non,
S'il y a un problème, il faut écrire ça dans le chat. Charles, tu peux régler le son, s'il te plaît?
Oui,
Faut pas interrompre
oui, nous demandons à l'interprète français de parler un peu plus proche du micro, s'il vous plaît. Il est un peu trop éloigné de son micro, là.
Donc ça, par exemple, c'est l'évaluation externe qui est faite.
Oui, c'est bon. Pour le français, c'est bon. Oui, c'est bon. Merci.
Qui revient sur...
Okay, can we proceed, please? There was some microphone open.
Apprenant à évoluer, ou bien comment chacun a été accompagné, quels sont les résultats, les faiblesses, les forces et autres. Et ça, c'est en plus de l'enquête que nous-mêmes faisons chaque année.
Charles should mute everybody. We have a voice in the background giving a full lecture. Let's mute everybody but the speaker. Thank you.
Perfect.
Okay, go ahead, Jean-Moïse.
I don't think you can see my screen right now. I'm sharing my screen.
Yes, we can see it. It's wonderful.
Yes, we can see you and hear you.
All right, perfect. Thank you everybody for your attendance. So today we are going deep dive on module 5 of our training. We are going deep dive. The purpose of today is closing the gap in entrepreneurship skill and infrastructure. The idea is for you to be able to gain actionable skill, real-world insight, and also be ready for the pitch business idea by the end of this session. In terms of agenda, we'll have a slow introduction, and then we will go straight to the point, key skill for the digital economy. And after, we're going to dive into entrepreneurship. What does it mean, entrepreneurship? Developing a digital business, leveraging digital platform for growth, accessing finance for sure, business pitch, and last but not least, we're going to review some real-world case study in order to have return of experience on how does it work really. So we can start by the introduction. We need to know that as of today, there is more than 400 million people aged between 15 and 35 years in Africa. Therefore, Africa has the youngest population in the world. This is quite interesting because it's customer, but it's also key personal resource for your business. When we're talking about entrepreneurship in the digital area, we mean identifying opportunity, creating value by using technology. In Africa, most of the time, we're going to be talking about using mobile technology. Why mobile technology? Because 70% of Africans owns a smartphone. This is the most accessible tech for your business. African digital market, as per some insight from Endeavor, could grow to $300 billion by 2030. In Africa, we're using mostly smartphone, social media, and also some innovative digital system. The key topic, the key insight here is 1, solve local challenge. 2, build a scalable business that address African need while tapping into global market. When we're talking about scalability, it refers to the ability for your company to grow and increase revenue without a corresponding rise in operational costs. The scalable business, therefore, can handle increased demand, expand into new markets, and serve more customers efficiently while maintaining or even improving profit margin. The target here, at the end of the day, is to build an ecosystem enabling a momentum for change. Most of the time, when we're going to be talking about digital business, people will tell you that, yes, but the infrastructure are not there for that. With the digital business, we are building first digital society, right, and governance, like having easily access to information about the legal infrastructure. We will have the adoption of digital infrastructure due to affordability, due to connectivity, and with the company that we are building, we are setting the digital economy. At the end of the day, this is an ecosystem which will lead to a momentum. African youth population is growing rapidly. As we are aware, sub-Saharan African youth, people between 15 and 24, unemployment was 71% in 2023. What does it mean? It means that traditional job market cannot absorb this growth. We need to think better, we need to think different. With digital entrepreneurship, we empower youth to create self-employment opportunity, to drive economic growth through innovation, and also to enhance community development. Let's go about some trend today in digital entrepreneurship. First of all, we will have the mobile first solution because we know that 80% of internet access in Africa is via a mobile. So we have more than 500 million mobile users in 2023. Also, a key trend will be the digital payment. The digital payment is quite important in Africa because it reduces the distance between the customer and the seller. We will have also e-commerce grow. We can have, so we can notice some platform like Jumia, we generate $1 billion in sale. We also have agri-tech because one of the key resources in Africa is agriculture. And as we have the topic of the health for the young, the topic of the health for the elder, now we are getting more and more health tech. So here you have a table giving you the trend and also the descriptor. The mobile solved the accessibility issue. The fintech solved the transaction issue. The e-commerce solved the market reach issue. Agri-health is the livelihood. And social impact venture is for our impact. So this is setting like the baseline on the digital entrepreneurship. Now let's go ahead. If we want to go in digital economy, we need some skill. Some of them we already have, some of them we don't. So let's have a look. First of all, the first and most important that we need is critical thinking and problem solving. Why are we talking about critical thinking? We're talking about critical thinking because there is a cultural scape. The cultural scape is like glasses that you're wearing, and it affects the way you perceive the world. This cultural scape is made by family tradition, tribal custom, community expectation. Worldwide, it shapes our decision making, and most likely in Africa. An example of cultural scape is we are doing this way since 10 years and is the way it works. Basically, if we start, for example, talking about water accessibility, the cultural scape will be looking on how to raise more and more water access points. The person which is getting out of the cultural scape, which is setting his true self, will be thinking about how to bring water to the customer instead of thinking about digging more and more wells. 70% of Africans live in rural areas with strong community ties. Problem-solving skill boost startup survival rate by 25%. When we talk about critical thinking, it's about changing our perspective. It's about challenging the norm. Why do we do it this way? It's about identifying gaps, what is missing in my community, and also propose innovative solution. How can I use tech to do it? The second step after the critical thinking and the problem solving will be naturally talking about creativity and innovation. Here you have on the screen an example of the mind map. Is taking a problem and being able to know what are the various items of this problem in order to change your perception of the problem. For example, an example that we gave is in Kenya, they faced an issue when they were doing the yield because the farm was too big to be monitored by people. Thinking from the cultural scape, we will be like, we need more supervisor on site. Thinking out of the box is, let's use drone to monitor the crops. That's an example of when we start thinking out of the box, we generate creativity, we generate authenticity, and then we can move ahead for innovation. How to do that? First, observe the local need. 2, brainstorm tech solution. Second, you have to test and refine your idea. When you do that, we have to be thinking about the digital literacy and the business acumen. You have to be proficient in tools, which are today quite the basis in digital business, like Google Analytics, social media ads, basic coding. Thanks to AI, we can be quite fast on basic coding. You need also business acumen, understanding what is the price? How do I set up my price? How do I recognize my customer need? What is a profit? How do I calculate my profit? Some skill analyzing sales data, negotiating with supplier for a better rate, or even creating a Facebook ad campaign targeting local buyer. Last but not least, you need adaptability and resilience. Here you have the life cycle of a startup. In the beginning of the startup, you have what we call valley of death. 50% of African startups fail within 2 years due to inflexibility. This is the valley of death. It is a period on which your idea had not been tested. You don't know if it will work, but you need to spend a lot of money. Once your idea proves that is useful, then your company starts to grow. Once you reach the maturity, most of the time some startups fail because they don't have the flexibility to adjust, to change the strategy. This is where we need pivot strategy. For example, offline sales during the outage, because sometimes you have it in Africa. Resilience, persist despite setback. I'm going to give you an example of pivot strategy. When I was living in Nigeria, we were able to do money transfer by SMS. It was quite useful because then you don't need internet to do a money transfer and you can use it fast when it's needed to your family. Now that we have an idea of the skill needed, now that we have the foundation of what is digital economy, let's dive on entrepreneurship. We'll be talking here about developing the business, leveraging digital platform, accessing finance, and the business pitch. So, first of all, what is a business? A business comes here to solve a problem by delivering a product, a service that people will be paying for. The first thing we keep in mind here is solving a problem, not looking for money. The money comes because we are solving a problem. Second point important, your UVP, unique value proposition. Is interesting to have a solution to the problem, but what sets you apart? What sets you apart from the other people who are in the market doing that? Some were doing that before you, some were doing that, some will come after you. What is your unique value proposition? You have to identify a pain point, propose a tech solution, and define your edge. I give an example here on the education of children in rural Yoruba community in Nigeria. The pain point, rural area, they lack the resource for storytelling, for knowledge transfer. It was done in the past by elder, but by the time it's going, we are losing our story. We are losing the history, we are losing the cultural story. So how to do that? Tech solution, a mobile application delivery interactive Yoruba folk tale and lesson. The app will be easy to use for kids with animation of character. But now we have to think about our age. The age here is affordable subscription, because at the end of the day, we need a product that people can pay for. Therefore, a subscription of $0.5 per month for the application. This is an example on how to find your unique value. Now that you know what is your unique value, now that you know what is your age, we go deep dive and testing the idea. You can survey some customer, you can test some of your friends that you know they're gonna give you an honest feedback. You have to know what is your business planning, having a timeline. In 3 months, I want to have my minimum viable product. In 6 months, I want to start the marketing. In 1 year, I want to set my product in local country. In 2 years, I want to be global in Africa. In 5 years, I want to be worldwide. What is the MVP, minimum viable product? The MVP will be the minimum, the tools that you can provide as an answer to the need without spending a lot of money. Because 60% of startups will find their MVP after the launch. Now that your MVP is there, you test it, you see that it's working. Now you can go on the scalability. 30% of African startups expand regionally within 3 years. In the digital marketing, we will come back on this one later. You will have to use social media. You will have to use SEO. You can partner with local blogger influencer. And also don't forget the power of storytelling. Here, the purpose is to engage with the customer for its acquisition and later think about the retention. The main goal of marketing is no longer allowing people to know that you can provide the answer to their need, is make people aware that they need your product. The new vision of marketing is make people aware that they need your product. Why? Because your product is innovative. If you wait for people to go looking for answer, they will go for the casual, the traditional tools system that they were buying. Your product will be seen as a game, like a baby fancy. So your marketing in the digital business is to make the people aware that your product exists and they need your product. In terms of customer acquisition, a strategy which can be used is referral. You can tell to your customer that if they bring other customers, they will have like 10% discount, 20% discount. It had been noticed that referral boosts sale by 15%. Once you get the customer, think about how to keep them. Now we're talking about retention. You can use a loyalty point. You can grow with your customer, like sending message for their birthday, sending a special discount for their birthday, or buy 5 in a month, get 1 free. Don't forget to AI. AI has to be used in your business. Why? Because it'll help you to decrease your cost. You have the AI agent chatbot, which allow your customer to come to your platform, to your application, and get the basic answer to their question 7 days, 24 hours. Chatbot adoption in Africa rose 40% in 2024. It helps you to reduce your cost. AI help you generate website in 15 minutes, 30 minutes. You can use a clone AI, which will make video for you. It helps you to reduce a lot of time. Now let's dive in leveraging digital platform. What we're talking about here, we're talking about Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn. LinkedIn allow you to connect with other business owner, potential customer, potential partner across the world. Facebook allow you to target your customer, to target who can buy your product, to target the customer according to their age, according to their location. Instagram allow you to do the same. TikTok is the new tool. If you're looking for young people, get on TikTok. You can have a partnership. You can have a partnership with local influencer, which will help your product to be seen globally. With the social media today, for the statistic of 2023, you can reach 80% of African youth online, and this is on daily basis. some key points. You have to define who you are, how you want to be perceived. What is your branding? It's part of what makes you unique. Talking about leveraging digital platform, we have to be talking about e-commerce platform and online marketplace because it reduces the distance between you and your customer. It allows you to reduce the need of physical store and to benefit from already established e-commerce infrastructure. Usually they take 5 to 15% commission. How about the payment? We have today a lot of payment solutions. We have M-Pesa in Kenya. We have Wave, which is Pan-African. We have Paystack in Nigeria. We have most commonly known Orange Money, mobile money. The advantage, instant payment, no bank account needed. And there is a security in the process. They take a fees, but it's quite affordable as a solution. I put in the table here a recapitulative of these fintech mobile money solution. What is their primary region, when they were launched, what are their service, and what are the notable features. Now that we set the business, now that we use the social network, the digital platform for scalability, we need money. We need money to grow. We need money for the business to go on the full scalability. So, therefore, what are the funding sources? The easiest one will be for you venture capital, funding company which can invest money in your business. In 2023, $1.2 billion were invested in African tech by venture capital. You can go on crowdfunding with local platform like Fundal.io, which will help you to raise money directly from the future customer or even for the people. You have some grant program like Tony Elumelu Foundation, AU Youth Fund, or you can go basically for a loan from Casual Bank. Now that you have to go on looking for money, it means that you need financial literacy, like what do I call the revenue, which is basically the money I receive from my customer. What is the profit? What are the two types of profit? The gross profit, which is what I receive from my customer, minus the cost of the goods sold, what I spend to produce the good. What is my net profit? My profit at the end of the day after I remove all the expense, the taxes, the interest. What is my cash flow? What do I call cash flow? The movement of money in and out my business. How do I analyze my cash flow? What are the months on which I have a positive cash flow, which means that I'm making more money than I'm spending, which is what we are looking for. What does it mean when I have a negative cash flow? How can I analyze my statement in order to identify why I have a negative cash flow? What is my burn rate, the rate at which you're spending your capital before generating positive cash flow? What is the break-even point, which is going to be a key question from your investor. The break-even point is when your total revenue equals total cost, meaning profit equals 0. What do we call equity? Equity is globally is the share, is the ownership of your company. It helps you to understand the financing, debt financing. I borrow money that I have to pay back with interest. Equity financing, I'm raising money by selling ownership in my company, but it means that at the end of the day, I won't be the only one driving the company because I will have to take under consideration the vision of the other investor. What is my return of investment, which is the measure of my profitability? How much profit somebody can make when he invests his money in my company? What is my runway? How long can I operate before running out of money? How do I calculate the valuation of my business? Quite important because as I'm launching a startup today, maybe in 5 to 10 years, I will want to sell it, or when I will be seeking investor, this will be an important value to share. 70% of small business fail due to poor cash flow management. And once we have this financial literacy, it helps us to build a business plan. The business plan globally, what is it? Is a document that we can share with potential investor, but I like to say that is your vision about your company, is about you knowing why you're making this company and being able to have like a first vision of what is the future of your company. The key point of the business plan will be the team, who you are, what is your skill, why should I trust you, what makes you the most legitimate person to run this business, the product, what is your business idea, what is the added value for the customer, the goal, what is your vision. You will have to to calculate your capex, your budget, how much you need as initial investment. You will have to have a provision of your cash flow. You will need to have a timeline, key milestone. When are you going to launch the MVP? When are you going to start the global marketing? When are you going to go on the market? And you will have to also identify your niche. What is your target market? Why does it matter? Because 70% of startups with a clear plan survive past 2 years. There is a lot of tools that you can use like Google Doc, Canvas for that. Why the business plan is important? Because it can help you to have your business model, something that I recommend to all the business owner. You need to have on the walls this business model big, because this is the full vision of your company. On this side, you have how you generate money from the customer. On this side, you have what you have to do in order to get your product ready. And here you have the bridge between what you're doing and on the other side, your customer. So here you have your value proposition, unique value proposition. You have the key activities that you have to do in order to set your product. You have your key resource. Most of the time is the internal resource in your company. Who are your key partners to do that? So this portion generates cost. And now, thanks to your value proposition, you are using your customer relationship to reach your customer, get the interest of your customer, and then through the channel, you deliver your product to your customer. And at the end of the day, is bring you revenue. I will strongly encourage each entrepreneur to have this on the wall. It really helps you to have a clear vision of your company and where you are heading. So now that we start talking about funding, now that we start talking about going to investor, we will have to talk about business pitch. What is a pitch? Basically, is being able to deliver in 2 to 5 minutes in a concise way, a presentation of your company, a presentation of your business, a presentation of you, and why should it matter for somebody to join your business. Therefore, you need to master the art of storytelling. Why storytelling? Because storytelling allows you to engage the emotion of the people in front of you. People connect with emotion first. Emotional pitches raise 40% more funds. Is a statistic from Harvard Business Review. Let's see the structure of a good pitch. First, the problem. Second, the solution. And third, the impact. You can add as fourth, what you expect from the person in front of you. Let's go in one example. This is a case of a guy who grew up in a village where there is an issue of water. He left the village to go to engineering school as informatic engineer, and then he came back thinking out of the box And he created an app in order to deliver water straight to the door of the villager. It's quite helpful because not everybody is able to go to the well to look for water. So this is the business pitch of the guy. He's there in front of you and you're asking him, I hear about your application, but I mean, that's quite weird. Why would you want to deliver water in-house for people living in the village? And he will tell you, growing up, I watched my village struggle with something really basic as access to water. There were times when the only source we had was closed, and people would wander for hours and hours looking for an open one. It was a daily challenge, emotional hookup. Now we go on the hero, the solution. That experience stay with me, and I knew that there had to be a better way. So I create an app to deliver water straight to the door of the people who need it every day. This is the solution. Why? Because it'll help people also find the nearest open water seller, making sure no one has to face that struggle again. This is an example of the storytelling as an entrepreneur. I will strongly advise you to develop a brief pitch about an idea that you have. Don't forget the problem, the solution, your unique value proposition, and then at the end, what you asking, what you want. If we good, now we can go of last but knowledge, not least. Yeah, last but not least are the case studies. Why case studies? Because we have to go on real world to see some people who dare try something new and will succeed at the end of the day. So we're going to review here Through the Wave in Nigeria, a fintech, Andela, a Pan-African solution, Trigger Food in Kenya, Ushashidi in Kenya, Farm Crowdy in Nigeria, and Waspito in Cameroon. Let's start by Through the Wave. Is a fintech in Nigeria, and they process around 10 billion annually. It was founded in 2016 in Lagos, but they got a partner quite fast in San Francisco, USA. The founder is a serial entrepreneur, Ininoriwa Aboyeji, and some of his friends like Adeleke Adekoya. And they were also working with some veterans from Google Wallet, PayPal, and Standard Bank. What is their unique value? Connect business owner and consumer payment through their infrastructure. How do they move from the idea to the scalability? They raised $475 million in multiple rounds. The key investor, Tiger Global, Avenue Growth, Visa, MasterCard. So if I have to recapitulate their success story, they started in a small Lagos office to become one of the unicorns in Africa and expanding to 34 African countries. Now let's move also to Andela. Andela is a tech talent pipeline. So how does it work? You're a good guy in Africa, you have a lot of good skill, and thanks to Andela, you can get connected to global fame worldwide who need your skill. It was founded 2014 Nigeria with Pan-African team. You have Inyoluwa Aboyeji. You have also Jeremy Johnson. And how they started? They started by training top African developer and connecting them with a big company. They secured 200 million in funding and 100 million in 2019, SoftBank. This is their success story. Let's move now to Trigger Food. Trigger Food is a platform which connects farm to market. How does it work? It was created in 2014 in Kenya to address inefficiency in agriculture. It helps you to buy directly from the vendor who is usually a farmer. You can buy directly or it can go through an auction. They raised 50 million in several rounds, and we can get in mind some investors like GOB Equity or Media Network. We go to Kenya, to Ushahidi, my bad, cross-sounding crisis data. You can use it in 150 countries. They created following post-election violence to map and share real-time crisis data. They use an open source crowdsourcing platform, and they succeed to have grants and donation, and they raised around $10 million. You have Farm Crowdy in Nigeria, which support more than 25,000 farmers, created in 2016 in Nigeria, to help farmers to get the investment, the capital, the training for their business. We move now to Vaspito in Cameroon. It was founded in 2020 in Yaoundé to solve the limit healthcare access to people, because you have 60% of the population who live in rural area. It was created by a telecom engineer and a team of Cameroonian doctor. The target here is to people get connected to a doctor using AI for the diagnosis, and the rate is quite affordable. You can be in your house, you connect to a doctor, you share with the doctor how you feel, and it can give you some key insight to move ahead. So, from this real example, what can we get? First, local solution. You have to solve a specific problem. For example, for Ushaidi was freezing mapping. You need the tech leverage, accessible tool. You will need the network, mostly investor. Start small, focus locally, and scale. So here it is, we are at the end of this module. What can we keep in mind? The digital economy offers a lot of opportunity through mobile, fintech, and e-commerce. You need some skill like critical thinking, authenticity, creativity, digital and financial literacy, resilience. What are the steps? You find a problem, you develop your idea, which is the solution of this problem. You build a minimum viable product, you market digitally, and you secure the funding. Start small, solve local, and scale smart. Think different and know that you are the answer. 4.5 billion were invested in African tech in 2023, and I believe you're one of the next. Thank you, everybody.
Well, thank you very much, Jean-Moïse, for this stellar presentation. It's really eye-opening, and it's giving everybody some food for thought. I know there are already questions, and I see clapping on the site as well, and I would join to clapping for this very structured, organized, and stimulating presentation. I know there are questions, but we are going to address this question at the end because we have two modules that are going to be presented. One question that is raised already and that we can immediately answer is whether the slides are going to be available. And the answer is yes. They will be made available on the platform, both in the English and the French version, and we'll have the videos as well on the platform for the course. And so I'm going to ask Jean-Moïse to stop his share, and then we can move to the next module of today, which is going to start bringing together ideas that we've been working on over the last 2 weeks. So let me put this on. Hopefully, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so over the last 3 weeks, we've worked on, if you may recall, we worked on digital skills that we need to build. We worked on digital infrastructure. We worked today on entrepreneurship skills. And all 3 elements are important in order to leverage the digital economy and create jobs for youth. But to make all this happen, you need to have policies in place to enable that transition into a digital economy. And so this is what we are going to talk about in this module. We're going to talk about the policy perspective in all of this effort. Now, and I'm going to use as a jump off point, which, and it's a question that one of the participants in this seminar last week raised. And his question was this: how come, in spite of all of the money and all of the project that has been invested in Africa to employ youth, we do not see a major sustained decline in youth unemployment? And it was a very profound question that I promised that we're going to begin to address, and we are going to try to address it today and in the next session. But classically, if you begin to not see a solution to a major problem that you are worried about, typically there are 2 answers. It's either because of politics or because of policy. Very often we tend to confuse the 2, especially in French, where it's essentially the same word, politique and politique. The first, which we're not going to talk about today, is politics. In other words, the absence of political will. What we're going to talk about is policy. If you have the right policy, especially in the area of the digital economy, can we make a dent in youth employment? And so that's the focus of this presentation, a focus on policy. And there's been a long tradition of believing that a good policy can make wonders. With a good policy, we can move mountains. We can start with Archimedes, a good 300 years before the current era, who basically suggested that, well, if you are given a long enough lever and an anchor on which you can place that lever, you can move the world, you can make wonders. And what he meant by this is that any problem, even if it sounds really unsolvable, can be solved if you have just the right lever, if you had the right policy. And so as we think about youth employment, as we think about any social problem, we have to think about 4 main considerations. The first is the policies themselves, the levers that we're going to use to solve the problem. The second is the actors, the people who are going to activate the leader, the people that we have to rely upon to do the job. The third is what Archimedes called the entry point, the institutional anchor, which institutions are going to be leveraged. And finally, the fourth is the targets, which youth are we trying to lift? And so as we go through this presentation, we are going to structure it just in 4 sections that mirror Archimedes' wisdom. That is policies, actors, entry points, and targets. As we go through this, and we're going to start with policies, essentially asking the question of the policy principles, the levers that we can use to harness the digital economy. And so as we go through this, of course, we are going to lean on Archimedes' old wisdom, but we are also going to lean on African wisdom, wisdom from Africa. And I'm going to start for this section with 2 proverbs. The first is from Somalia, and the idea here is that when you are at sea, even if you cannot change the direction of the wind, you can adjust your sail. What does it mean? It means today we have to operate in a global context that we did not create. We need to find employment for youth. We need to harness the digital economy in an environment that Africa did not create. But nonetheless, we have to learn how to navigate this environment. We have to learn how to adjust our sails. And this is a very important proverb. There's a second one here, and this time from Congo, which is to say you learn how to cut down trees by cutting them. What this means? It means simply that there's power in learning by doing. We are not going to have the perfect policy from the get-go. We have to start and keep adjusting until we get better and better policies. So this is basically the first two proverbs that I'm going to use here. And so let's start with policy. What is a policy? Essentially, you can define a policy in comparison with other terms that seem to be often confused with it, which is what is the difference between policies and programs or policies and project. And so you can think of policies as the highest level of problem solving. It is the set of broad framework, the big principles that you have in mind in thinking about how you're going to solve problems. You can think about policy in very simple terms as a choice between alternatives, between competing alternatives, a choice about direction. Where do you want to go in terms of your youth employment? It's a choice about the means that you're going to use. What are the resources that you're going to use? Where are they going to come from? What are you going to take away from? It's a choice about target groups. What are the youth that I'm going to privilege if I have to make a choice? And it's a choice about the values. What kind of society do I want to build into the future? And so this is basically what we have in mind when we are discussing policies. And in terms of principle, I can highlight 5 principles here that I think could be useful in helping us navigate the questions of youth employment and the digital economy. I'm not going to go in detail through all of these 5 principles. I'm going to mostly highlight the first and the last. The first is system transformation, which is we have to change the entire system as opposed to a single sector. Then it's a principle of inclusion, as much as possible, bring everybody along. Innovation and autonomy. We do not create the technology that we have to use today, but we have to think about how we can move quickly into the driver's seat. The question of cybersecurity, making people safe when they enter that universe. And finally, this is a point that I'm going to also emphasize, is the notion of cultural integrity, maintaining the culture, preserving the culture, even as we enter this new world. Let me say a few words about system transformation. System transformation is essentially to argue that we do not wish to simply change a sector, to change it gradually and patiently. It's about a change that is going to be accelerated. It's a change that is not just in the level of, let's say, employment that we're going to have, but in the nature of employment and the sectors in which people are going to be employed. It's a change that is deeply intentional, and it's a change that is going to involve many sectors. It's not the education sector, but also government, the way the media, the families, the technology that we use, tradition, and so forth. So the entire system has to be involved in that transition. And in fact, in the case that we have here, you can actually speak about a super system. That is, we have the digital economy, which is a system in itself, with the skills, the infrastructure, the entrepreneurship that we've talked about. But that system itself is nested within a broader system that we have to consider. That is to say, the bottom line is that we want to create jobs for youth. It's not going to be enough that youth become entrepreneurial or that they have skills. It does not matter until we resolve the employment problem, until we reduce the rates of unemployment, especially graduate unemployment. And we have to think about the entire system of the production and reproduction labor, right? And this is the super system that we have to think about here from the standpoint of national policy, right? So this digital system being nested into the labor reproduction system. Now, the second big principle that I wanted to draw our attention to is the principle of cultural integrity, by which I mean several things. As we think about policies, again, keep in mind that the bottom line, the end goal is to create jobs and to create meaningful jobs that enhance the people's lives, enhance the culture, and make African societies more vibrant and more resilient, right? So keep that cultural integrity, that people-centeredness in mind. And there's already concern that as we think about that technology, they are all the opportunities that we have. It's going to be faster. You can communicate with people across the world. You can leverage it to create a job. But we have to also think about the side effects, right? And so the data that we have here come from a study by Jeffrey Conroy-Crotts and Joseph Kone using Afrobarometer data, survey data that are collected across many countries. And then you can see clearly that if you ask people whether the effect of social media, just to take that example, are mostly positive or mostly negative, right? You have many people who do believe that this effect are positive. They are actually appreciate social media, but nonetheless, there's clear acknowledgement of adverse side effects. Across all these countries, the percentage tend to be higher in the countries that you have here below. And some of the things that people are concerned about in particular, again, just to take an example, would include fake news, would include polarization, etc., etc. And in other countries, I would bring that data later, they are concerned about mental health. They are concerned about jobs being mostly displaced. They are concerned about inequality, as we talked previously about this. And so you have to think about the plus and minus, the yin and yang, the good and bad of that entry, and manage that entry, keeping in mind the well-being of the entire society. So that's the first thing, which is about the policy. Now, who are the actors? Here, as I promised, we're also going to lean on African wisdom and proverbs from many countries. In this case, it's going to be from Kenya. In Kenya, the Kikuyu say, if you take little sticks that are individually frail and you put them together in a bundle, they become very hard to break and, in fact, unbreakable. What does it mean? It means if you have a tough problem to deal with and you involve multiple actors in a way that is complementary, this group is going to be very much more effective than if you relied on a single actor alone. And so we'll see this in the case of development projects and particularly in employment generation. In many development projects, especially before the 90s, there was a tendency to think about the state and the market as the two main actors that we have to involve. And they were seen as complementary. The market being efficient and fast and nimble in providing solutions, highly competitive and creative, but the state being a balancing force, taking care of public goods, taking care of equity issues, taking care of norms, and making sure that everybody follows the rules. And so you had this duo that was mostly kept in mind. And of course, the relative importance of the state versus market varied from society to society. In some society, you had a tendency to lean more on a laissez-faire direction where the market was prominent. And you have other societies that tend to have a stronger state intervention. But nonetheless, you have the two actors. But starting in the 90s, you had sort of a greater interest into adding a third actor into the mix, which is civil society, NGOs, if you wish. And NGOs can actually complement both the state and market in multiple ways that we can discuss briefly, right? The number of NGOs has risen over time since the 90s tremendously across all sectors of development, including education, which is going to concern us here. But at the same time, there's been increasing worry about the accountability of NGOs, whether they're effective and so forth, right? So this is something to consider. But nonetheless, there's still the belief that NGOs can play a vital role and complement both state and market, both before problems emerge, basically anticipating problems and addressing side effects after state and market intervention. They can serve as a watchdog to oversee governments and inequalities, or to serve people who fall under the cracks. So there's a potential role for civil society as well. And these roles can be multiple. And as you move from left to right and from the bottom to the top, you have roles that are more and more hands-on, not just about voice and expertise, but increasingly activities on the ground, right? Typically, when you think about these various sticks in a bundle, as the Kikuyu would say, there was a tendency to think about a specialization of the state in one area, business in one area, NGOs in one area, and then they interact only occasionally. So each area has its sphere of expertise. That was the classic way to connect the three. Increasingly, there's a tendency to see them as more interactive, working closer together, not being far apart, interacting more deeply. But nonetheless, there's still this value of thinking about the comparative advantage of each of these institutions. And so as we go back to the lectures that we had before about digital infrastructure, if you remember Juan's role or lecture, he said, if we need to develop the digital infrastructure, you must think about 3 levels. The high level of digital infrastructure, the servers, the cables, the electricity, etc. This is a role for the state, mostly or primarily, right? This is where the state can make the largest difference. Then you have the middle level, which is the platform. And here the civil society can be useful. And then at the user end, buying appliances, cell phones, and computers, this is kind of market side, right? And so you have this mix, this division of labor, where you have the 3 levels, and you can match them with the 3 actors, right? And so we can think about how we effectively match these 3 levels with the 3 actors that we have in mind. The same is true when we think about training and building digital skills. You have the basic skills, you have the middle skills, and you have the high skills. And again, here you can have a division of labor, where as the basic level, it can be mostly the state. At the middle level, it can be mostly or primarily NGOs that can help in the mix, especially for people who have left school. And the higher level can be the private sector, right? So again, 3 sectors, 3 level, and you can make this match, even though you still expect them to interact, right? And I'm going to share with you an experience that we had in a personal project that I have conducted in Cameroon about working this middle level and providing intermediate skills to young people who are between high school and college, or high school and the world of market. And so this organization, this small NGOs that I have created, is trying to build these skills for youth that are at the middle stage, right? And I can tell more about it, but this is small in comparison to large organization that you see here on your right, and there are many such organizations across Africa. Now, we've talked about the division of labor in the digital infrastructure. Jean-Moïse just told us about partnerships in digital entrepreneurship. And you can also think about how you leverage the digital economy for entrepreneurship. And there's also that gradient in which the digital skills or technology is central or less central, where you have businesses at the very high end or versus the low end. And you can have the same division of labor, right? When you just you want to use technology to create your business speech or just access to finance, you can mobilize one actor, let's say civil society. If it's to leverage platform for growth, another actor. If it is to develop large businesses, you are going to involve the state in a greater, to a greater extent, right? So whether it's about digital skills, whether it's about digital infrastructure, whether it's about entrepreneurship, all 3 actors, state, market, NGOs can be involved, and you can think about a division of labor, even though you expect them to interact. The third point that we are going to address is the entry point. What are the institutional entry points that you're going to use? Again, here, let's go back to the African wisdom. And the proverb that I'm going to use here is going to come from Côte d'Ivoire. And the proverb is this: little by little, the bird builds its nest. Petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid, right? So what does this mean? It speaks to the power of gradualism, making investment early and patiently and steadily, and working your way steadily to greatness, right? Little by little, the bird is building its nest. And so if we think about this in a life course perspective in African societies, we can think about this gradual approach to cultivating digital skills, to cultivating entrepreneurship. You would start at the elementary level, all the way from, let's say, 5 to 19, where children are taught basic skills, where everybody's going to be trained, and where the state is going to be the primary actor. And as you move to phase 2, where youth are now leaving high school, some would go to college, some are going to go into the labor market, some are going to be neither in education, employment, or training. Here, you are going to have more advanced skills, not really high expertise, but more advanced programming skills. And civil society can be extremely important here. Not all youth are going to be trained. It's not going to be the state alone. Civil society can help. The higher stage, which is going to be the highest level skills, is going to be the private sector, very selective, high-end skills. And what I'm going to suggest and what I'm going to focus on is the middle skills and the role of NGOs in imparting some of these middle skills. And what I would suggest is that one population that we really need to pay attention to is the population of the needs of youth that are in transition. They have completed high school, they're looking for a job, they don't have job opportunities, and you need to build that population. You need to provide computer skills, but you also need to provide the sort of entrepreneurship skills that Moise talked about, and you have to provide civic skills. In short, you need to think about a holistic education, or in French, encadrement, which is basically chaperoning and taking care of youth that are at this critical juncture of their life, providing them skills that are going to make them not just better, more literate, computer literate people, but are going to make them better workers and better citizens, so that they can contribute to their communities as well, right? You have to have holistic training in mind, a training of the entire person from inside to outside, not just digital skills, but other skills, entrepreneurship, social capital, human capital, social knowledge, self-knowledge, etc., right? So this was the third piece about basically the entry point, right? Thinking about the gradual leveraging of all the institutions, starting from the young age to older age, mobilizing 3 institutions. Finally, we are going to talk about the targets. What are the youth that you want to target? And here, the wisdom is going to come from Nigeria. And the Yoruba say, the forest has many trees of many kinds, and all of these trees are useful. You just want to discard some and say, I'm going to only use these trees, right? All of them are useful. And one of the common mistakes that we make when we discuss youth employment and youth policies and youth this and this is a tendency to think about youth as a very homogeneous group, as if they had the same problem, the same need, the same skills, and so forth. This is nothing close to the truth. And I'm going to start by just highlighting how large the differences are among African youth in terms of resources and then in terms of skills and aspiration and interest. If we think about resources first, the map that you have here is showing you a map of world countries in terms of the countries that have the highest levels of inequality in the world and those that have low levels of inequality. And the dark red shows where inequality tends to be high. And you can see a couple of countries in Latin America, but many countries in Africa, and also other countries here in red. So a lot of inequality. Africa is becoming the epicenter of inequality in the world. So large income inequality. If you add this fact to the notion that across Africa, the richer families have much fewer babies than the poor families. If you go to Liberia, for instance, the top 20% of the family in terms of income have an average of 3 babies, whereas the bottom quintile in terms of wealth would average 8 babies, right? That tells you something important to consider, right? Large differences in income, large differences in birth rate, with people who are the poorest having the more babies. What this means is that you have massive inequality in terms of educational resources and the resources that the children have. And the picture that you have here is a picture that you're likely to find across many African countries. That is to say, you're going to have schools that have really decent infrastructure, very small class size, children have access to computer, effective training, well-paid training, all the resources, labs, and so forth, versus classes that are overcrowded, where children lack the most basic resources. So the first thing to consider is this stark differences in resources. The other thing that you want to consider is that we have large differences in interest as well. Not everybody wants to do the same thing. Not everybody wants to be a coder, a computer scientist. This is a small sample of participants in my youth camp under the PishNet, the NGO that I just told you about. And the youth that you have here, you can just see the difference in interest. She wanted to be a writer. He wanted to be an entrepreneur. He wanted to be a boxer, a fighter, and at the same time as a computer scientist. He wanted to be a chef, a cook. She wanted to be a stylist. He wanted to be a comedian, and he wanted to be an athlete. They all have different interests, and we want to keep this interest in mind. And if you take the sort of intelligence that they have, if you have them pass an intelligence or an aptitude test, they also have different kinds of intelligences. Right? And so the question is, and the concern and the invitation is, as we think about this youth and the power of digital skills and entrepreneurship, it's not about changing everybody to make them enter the digital economy, to make them fit the need, the straight need of what appears to be the current labor market. It's about making the skills and the technology work for the youth, leverage the skills and the interests that they have while taking into account the resources that they have. And so if you take these two factors into consideration, you consider the fact that you have different level of resources. If you look on the vertical axis, some have limited resources, some have a lot. And they have different talents and motivation. Some may appear to have low motivation and some appear to have high motivation. You have at least 4 main groups. Some kids that have high resource and very highly motivated. And if from a policy perspective, you invest in that group, well, you are going to achieve results relatively fast because, number one, you have to provide very few subsidies. They have resources, or at least their family have resources, and they are talented. So it's not going to take a ton of effort to make them move and have them create jobs. But the downside is going to be that you're going to have vast amounts of inequality. You're going to reinforce the inequality that exists already. If you would focus on the kids that do not have resources but have talent, well, you still are going to have quick results. And the advantage is that you're going to have a solution that's going to be more equitable. You're going to give more or less everybody a chance. But the downside is you have to provide more subsidies. The point I'm trying to make here is that as we think about how to allocate resources and where to direct youth, we have to think about that mix of interests, that diversity of resources, and realize that some hard policy choices have to be made. And these policy choices are going to be made in thinking about the broader culture and the direction where we want to take our respective societies. And as we think about this, I want to, and this is going to be my closing remark, is going to be about thinking about the chicken and egg problem. The technology is to be in service of youth as opposed to youth contorting themselves to fit the technology, right? So we have to avoid the technological egg to be the driving engine as opposed to the society and the culture that we want to preserve or build. Okay, so in summary, when you think about designing policies to leverage the digital opportunity, the digital economy, and create jobs, there are four main areas of consideration: the policies, the actors, the entry point, as well as the target. In terms of policy, it's important to keep in mind that the end goal is to create jobs and to transform societies, entire societies, in the direction we want, keeping in mind the plus and minuses of the digital technology. In terms of the actor, you have to think about the sort of mix and specialization of the three actors that you're going to make: the state, the market, and civil society, as you promote digital infrastructure, digital skills, or entrepreneurship. In terms of the entry point, think about the gradual building of these skills across the life course, starting at a very young age, building all the way to the end of high school, and then thinking about the middle passage, how to involve civil society to address this population of needs, and then beyond building the high-end skills. So there's at least three main entry points where we have to mobilize all the three actors and build all the skills that we need to leverage the digital economy and provide employment. And finally, with the targets, we have to keep in mind the diversity of the youth, have a very deep, finely grained sociological understanding of the diversity among youth.
Okay.
And we are going to stop here with a reminder of the African proverbs. And so I'm going to turn it over to Zainabu to moderate the Q&A for those who have questions.
Okay, thank you. Parfait. And Jean Moise, no, it was really insightful. And I believe really good for the participants. So let me see the hands we have here. José Dekpo, vous pouvez prendre la parole. José?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Go ahead.
you. Thank you all. Good morning, everyone. I would like to really congratulate the two presenters because they have made very good job. Now, first of all, I would like to make a kind of contributions regarding to Jean Moise's presentation, and also try to ask her some questions. Now, first of all, he mentioned that in 2023, we have 71% of unemployment in Africa, which is a very high rate. And he mentioned that the key challenge is about digital literacy and the business acumen. That is a reality today, because we all know that despite having a telephone, there are some key skills that have been taught through these sessions that the majority of us, we didn't master. And we don't master. So we need to be really empowered regarding these skills. Now, he also talked about the lack of flexibility strategies because it shows through his surveys that 2 years, the African startup fails after 2 years. And here I really wanted to put stress about the lack of the policy that Dr. Parfait has outlined during his presentation. This is the reality in our country. Even if you have a very good business idea, our government, they don't have a real follow-up and a backup policy. And you are, after just some moments, you are obliged to regularly pay tax and the other stuff that's cause you what we call commonly bankruptcy. We really need to have this kind of backup policy for younger people. He also mentions the kind of the case of a crowdfunding. Crowdfunding is a really a solution.
Jose, can you try to summarize? We have some other hands and just have half an hour left, please.
Okay, thank you. Sorry. So I just want him to help us have some strategies regarding the crowdfunding, because it's a really a real assets that can help us to solve these issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ngay Balde. Ngay Balde.
Bonjour, bonjour à tous.
Bonjour.
Bonjour Zainab. Merci, un grand merci pour les deux présentations, c'était parfait. Monsieur Jean-Moïse et le monsieur avec la sagesse africaine, monsieur Elundo, merci beaucoup pour tous ces proverbes africains qui vont nous aider à nous ressourcer et à comprendre que nous avons l'essentiel pour aller de l'avant. Merci beaucoup. Alors, moi, j'aimerais juste apporter une petite contribution et poser une question, si vous me le permettez. C'est par rapport à la présentation de monsieur Jean-Moïse, c'est bien ça, je pense, qu'il a parlé de beaucoup de choses hyper importantes. On ne peut pas, malheureusement, le temps ne permet pas de revenir sur tout ça. Moi, j'aimerais juste insister sur les compétences. On a parlé de compétences, d'aptitudes, mais les soft skills, ça permet aussi aux jeunes entrepreneurs d'obtenir beaucoup de choses. Aujourd'hui, on peut avoir un master, on peut avoir une bonne idée de business, mais si en matière de relations humaines, on n'a pas certaines aptitudes, ça peut constituer aussi un frein. Parce qu'il a parlé de marketing digital par exemple, le fait de se faire aider par les influenceurs. Donc, je vais prendre l'exemple de mon pays qui est le Sénégal. En cette période, par exemple, du Ramadan, presque tous les influenceurs sont pris par de grosses boîtes pour faire leur promotion. Donc, aujourd'hui, un entrepreneur qui vient de démarrer, pour qu'il puisse avoir un contact, ne serait-ce qu'un contact avec ces influenceurs-là, qui puissent promouvoir son produit, ça peut demander du temps et il faut avoir de l'argent. Par contre, si on a certaines aptitudes et certaines relations humaines, des links, et c'est important aussi, on peut avoir accès à ces personnes-là sans, je ne dirais pas sans débourser de l'argent, mais sans débourser grand-chose. Donc, j'exhorte vraiment à tous ceux qui sont là et qui aspirent à devenir des entrepreneurs à prendre en compte cela. Quelqu'un l'a dit, je pense que c'est M. Elundu, c'est-à-dire les principes, c'est important, la valeur humaine. Donc, on peut chercher de l'argent et tout ça, mais si on n'a pas ces principes-là, ça peut constituer aussi un frein. Alors, pour l'autre participation, ça concerne la patience. Donc, moi, ce que je rencontre dans le domaine dans lequel je suis, qui est justement l'entrepreneuriat, c'est que les gens sont trop pressés. Donc, il faut y aller mollo, c'est-à-dire step by step. Ça ne pas se presser parce qu'il a parlé de MVP et tout ça. Malheureusement, dans la majorité des cas, les gens sont trop pressés. On ne prend pas assez le temps pour se préparer. Et je pense qu'il y a un proverbe, si je me trompe, M. Parfait pourra me corriger, qui dit que si on doit couper un arbre, on doit passer plus de temps à aiguiser sa lame pour y arriver. Malheureusement, il nous manque ça. Et moi, j'aimerais bien que dans ce genre d'assistance-là, que vous qui vous comprenez mieux, vous exhortez cette jeunesse-là à avoir de la patience, en croire en soi. C'est hyper important. Parce que l'autre frein, on n'en parle pas assez, c'est mon avis, c'est que quand on veut entreprendre en Afrique, le premier frein, c'est notre entourage. Je dirais la famille, les proches. Quand tu veux faire une chose, non, tu ne vas pas y arriver, non, tu ne peux pas le faire, non, tu ne dois pas le faire. Et quand on n'a pas un mental d'acier, comme on dit, soit on démarre même pas, ou bien on démarre, mais à au premier obstacle, on s'arrête. Donc, c'est important, il faut être patient. Il a parlé aussi du choix de l'activité. Lundu l'a dit aussi, on est différent. Il faut accepter cette différence-là. Pour moi, la différence, ça ne doit pas être un frein. Cette diversité-là, elle est hyper importante. Donc, on ne peut pas aussi entreprendre. Tout le monde ne peut pas faire la même chose. Ce n'est pas possible aussi. Donc, voilà, merci pour ne pas faire...
Oui, d'accord,
voilà.
merci.
Merci beaucoup, Zainab. Merci.
D'accord, ok. Elodie? Elodie?
Oui, merci beaucoup, prof. Merci, je suis ravie de suivre toutes ces informations qui vont nous aider d'aller de l'avant et aider nos communautés. Mais je me demande comment nous allons régler tous les défis qui ont été épinglés dans les modules précédents quant à la problématique des manques d'accès à l'informatique, mais aussi à l'Internet, aussi au net, ceux qui sont qui n'apprennent pas, qui ne sont pas éduqués et tout ça, voir le nombre et le volume important des jeunes, mais face à cette intelligence artificielle où le monde évolue très vite. Est-ce que si nous ne trouvons pas des réponses aux problèmes, nous allons réellement avancer et pallier aux défis ou nous serons toujours parmi les derniers? Or, mon souci est de voir comment est-ce que nous pouvons régler tous les défis qui nous font des pesanteurs et qui nous fait toujours reculer ou marquer les pas sur place lorsque le monde évolue très vite et que l'Afrique soit quand même compétitive. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Elodie. Aliou? Aliou? Aliou, can you hear me?
Hello, can you hear me?
Okay. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you for the two presenters. The informal economy in Africa plays a significant role in the overall economic landscape. According to reports, there are estimated 70% to 80% of the labor force in many African countries that are in the informal sector. That includes human-skilled agriculture, street vendor, and various service-based jobs. The informal economy is crucial for job creation, particularly in the urban area. Also, considering the category of net, which represents a concerning demographic in many African countries. Statistics have often indicated that millions of young people fall into this category, particularly given huge unemployment rates and educational barriers. According to the African Development Bank report, there are nearly 26 million net youth in Africa. This situation raises concern about social stability and economic development, if not addressed. Together, the challenges of the informal economy and the net youth underscore the need for policies that promote education, vocational training, and the integration of informal workers into the formal economy to foster sustainable growth and reduce poverty. This is my question. How do we create a balance based on both presentations, considering the huge informal economy we are faced with and the net category we have to deal with in harnessing the digital economy and closing the gap in entrepreneurship, skills, and infrastructure? Thank you very much.
Ok, thank you, Aliou. Parfait, on répond ou on prend une nouvelle personne?
Une ou deux.
Ok, d'accord. Chamba? Je dis Chamba. Je ne sais pas si je prononce bien.
Sinon, je n'ai pas dit qu'il n'est pas parti avec.
Hein? Quoi? C'est qui? Ok. Marcel Zombo. Marcel Zombo.
Allô? Allô, oui. Bonjour Zenabon.
Oui, bonjour, bonjour.
Allô? Oui,
Oui,
bonjour
oui, on vous
Zenabon.
entend, allez-y.
Ok, bonjour aussi au professeur Parfait Lundu. C'est vrai que jusqu'ici, il n'a pas encore répondu à mon message que je lui ai fait inbox. Bon, je reste toujours en attente. J'ai l'espoir que peut-être aujourd'hui ou demain, cela serait fait. C'était juste une parenthèse. Ben, sinon, je tiens déjà à féliciter le professeur et pour sa brillante présentation qui nous a fortement édifiés avec les proverbes africains. Mais je tiens à relever que en matière de politique entrepreneuriale, au niveau du Cameroun, il y a une véritable volonté politique en la matière. Je vais prendre ici pour étayer ce que je dis parce qu'au niveau du ministère des Postes et des Télécommunications, il y a un programme qui a été mis conjointement avec le ministère de l'Agriculture et du Développement, et du Développement rural, un programme qui vise ici à promouvoir les nouvelles technologies, à mettre en place un dispositif qui permet de trouver des solutions technologiques pour impulser l'agriculture au niveau du Cameroun. Et cela vise ici à développer l'entrepreneuriat et créer des emplois. Il y a au niveau de la sous-région, il y a toute une université qui fait dans le domaine de l'entrepreneuriat numérique. L'université Inter-État Cameroun-Congo, qui est sous financement de la CEMAC et qui dispose en son sein d'un incubateur qui promeut les innovations et l'entrepreneuriat. Et il y a aussi le ministère en charge des petites et moyennes entreprises qui promeut aussi l'entrepreneuriat au niveau des établissements primaires, secondaires et universitaires. Voilà un peu quelques exemples d'une volonté politique au niveau du Cameroun pour pouvoir impulser l'entrepreneuriat, notamment dans le domaine du numérique. Mais maintenant, cependant, il y a une problématique. La problématique, je crois bien que le professeur aussi l'a bien relevé, celle de la ressource financière. C'est le nerf de la guerre. J'aimerais bien que, au-delà des sources de financement classiques et des sources de financement gouvernemental, est-ce que le professeur, de par son expérience avec les autres États, est-ce qu'il ne peut pas nous donner quelques pistes, quelques moyens de trouver des ressources, impulser nos actions? Qu'il a parlé de synergie et il a bien pris les proverbes. Je dirais aussi à côté de ces proverbes qu'il a employés, il faut plusieurs brindilles de balai pour faire un balai pour nettoyer. Mais il faut aussi une main pour attacher il faut une main supplémentaire pour attacher un fardeau de bois. Voilà. Comment pouvons-nous combiner, nous mettre ensemble pour pouvoir trouver des ressources nécessaires pour pouvoir impulser davantage l'entrepreneuriat dans l'Afrique, dans la sous-région Afrique centrale en général et au Cameroun en particulier. Voilà ma préoccupation. Et sur ce, je vous remets l'antenne et je vous remercie encore. Et j'ai dit au professeur que mon message a été transmis depuis il y a de cela plus d'une semaine et j'espère que j'aurai la réponse.
D'accord, d'accord. Merci. Il ne reste plus beaucoup de temps. Merci, merci.
Voilà.
Parfait,
Merci
allez-y.
beaucoup. Merci encore, parfait.
OK.
OK. Beaucoup de contributions et je remercie les participants pour cela. Je vais laisser l'honneur à Jean-Moïse de commencer et puis je verrai quelques-unes des questions qui me sont adressées et auxquelles je peux répondre. Moïse, si vous avez des commentaires à la suite.
Oui. French or English? Just want to know.
Comme tu voudras. Il y a une traduction.
Okay. So I'm going to start by the crowdfunding because that was one of the key questions asked by one of the participants. He asked if I can give more information about the crowdfunding. So first of all, sorry, because we just had like 20 minutes, so we couldn't go deeper on that one. But talking about crowdfunding, you need to capture the main idea. The main idea is to get the money from people, not from company. So there are several types of crowdfunding. The first one is donation. 71% of the worldwide crowdfunding is donation. Basically, it means that you are coming online, you present your project, you capture the interest of people and people are willing to give money because they believe in your project. You have 50%, 15%, which is in lending. Basically, you will tell to people that they give you money and you give back with 1%, 2%. And there is 40%, which at the end of the day go back to equity. There is a lot of platform. I will see if I can add some of these platform in the slide, so that when you will receive the final slide, you will have some crowdfunding platform that you can try. So I will go to the second question. It was asked by the lady. She was asking how to close the gap, because we can see that there is a potential, but we can see that also there is a big gap in terms of infrastructure, in terms of policy. And what I want to tell her is the first thing is think out of the box. There is a lot of gap, but you shouldn't focus on how to close the gap. You should focus first on what do we want to achieve. What do we want to achieve in terms of solution, in terms of ecosystem of entrepreneur? What are the local issues that we want to solve? And then it will help us to think a little bit out of the box. If I take an example which just crossed my mind is, if you go to a village, for example, they can tell you that there is not enough classroom for the kid. So thinking in the box will be like, how can I get money to build more classroom? Thinking out of the box will be, how can I develop an innovative education system in the village without spending a lot of money? And then you can find yourself offering to some school tablet, micro tablet. You have some which are quite cheap in China. And from that solution, you can see that you are leveraging technology to do better, not to just solve the issue that you can first perceive. So these were the two main questions that I kept in mind, and for direct answer.
Okay, so let me try to complete. Actually, you answered the question of funding sources, crowdfunding, which is a growing connection. You can think about international business partnership. You can think about leveraging the resources from the diaspora, and the example that Jean-Moïse gave from Nigeria, where you have a business that started in Nigeria and quickly drew the attention of Nigerians in the diaspora, was a very good example. And so I think all of these elements he addressed to some extent. There was a question about, in fact, the very first question was about the extent to which national governments do not support startup and how they can build incubators and create a business environment that is going to make both starting a business and succeeding easy, because by reducing the duration, the time that it takes to complete all of the administrative paperwork, by reducing the costs that are associated with it, by reducing corruption, if you will, the amount of money that has to be paid under the table and so forth. And so I think that question was a fundamental question, but I think the Zambu from Cameroon suggests an example where some of that support from the state and state institutions and private universities begin to exist. And so as we build a community of practice here, we can begin to see differences across countries in the extent to which national institution governments support individual startups and individual efforts to build businesses. Nyai raised a fundamental question that I didn't really have a good opportunity to elaborate on, which is the importance of soft skills. I'm a true believer in soft skills, and I think Jean-Moïse also talked about this. I think it's not just the power of an idea as a technology. It's not, you can sell, you can build a spoon or you can build a computer to serve people, and the computer can run very well. But what is going to get you over the top is if you think carefully about what this computer is going to do for your customer. How is it going to enhance their life? How are you going to be of service to them and make sure they get the best use possible from that computer? So soft skills are extremely important. And I'm really glad she brought this up. And there's a variety of soft skills that you can think of is consumer customer orientation. Think about the customer's needs, be there for them. Thinks about self-belief, thinks about integrity, keeping your word, making sure that you keep basically your promises. Thinks about integrity, respecting the value of people's resources, etc. Being willing to work hard and be patient, as she said. So all of these soft skills are important. And if you recall what I was telling you about these personal NGOs that are created, is in fact that holistic training that we try to impart, getting youth to understand themselves first, who they are, are their unique skills, what are their aspirations, what difference they can make in the world, what difference they want to make in the world, how hard they're willing to work in the direction of their goals, formulate a personal plan for it, formulate their vision of society and the difference they can make. And so all these are important ingredients to the hard skills that are about knowing how to code, having access to technology and so forth. So that's very important. There's the speaker from Congo, the DRC, asked a fundamental question about just the continued limitation that we have in accessing technology, access to the net, especially among underprivileged groups. This is not a problem that is going to be resolved in quickly or for everybody at the same time. I think there are two ways to there are two orientations. One is to focus on the problems and the limitations and what you don't have. The other is to focus on the opportunities that you do have. When you are determined to make something happen, you may not have a phone, but your neighbor has a phone. Your phone may not have all the application, but there may be a computer center nearby, or a neighbor or a relative who can, provided that you explain your plan, get you that computer. And so the mindset here is important. It's important to keep a mindset where we think about making the most of things that we have already, as opposed to worrying about the things that we don't have. Now, I don't discount the severe limitations of technology. I think everything else equal, if you have wide access to technology, things are going to be easier. But at the same time, I think the technology is moving, not fast enough for many of us, but we can already build with the pieces that we have at hand. There's somebody who talked about the need all the generation of young youth that are in education and employment and so forth. And I couldn't agree more. This is a vital group that we need to consider. They are at the perfect time in their lives. They have the perfect skills, and societies have the greatest advantage of addressing the needs of this subpopulation. And there was a question of how you move from informal sector employment to digital economy. It's a large question, and if you allow me, I can try to answer this in the course of the question that we're going to post back online, because it requires some thinking in order for me to give a useful answer, as opposed to just basically saying that the two are related, and you have a mix of people who are in the formal sector but actually make a very effective use of digital technology. And so the transition is not a linear one, but I need to think more carefully about an answer. Mr. Zong did acknowledge the answer. I'm going to give an early answer to your email today, but this is part of a broader conversation. Tremendous case study of a context in which you have efforts to build entrepreneurial skills at the university level, and but the finances being the resource. And I think Jean-Moïse provided the start of an answer. And I want to acknowledge Mr. Zombu as being the person who posed the question that I used as a jumping off point to this class conversation. And essentially, how come, despite all the investment that we are making already, we do not see a big decline in youth employment? I didn't include his name because maybe he didn't want to be cited, but I want to acknowledge him publicly here in this forum. So we can move to the next round of questions, Zainab.
Il y a quelqu'un qui parle dans... Charles, tu peux fermer le micro là? Ok, James Obakpolo. James? James, can you hear me? Ok. Nuhu El Hayat. Nuhu El Hayat.
Oui, bonjour.
Voilà, bonjour.
Oui, je suis là, bonjour. Vous m'écoutez?
Oui, oui, allez-y, allez-y.
Allô?
Oui, oui, allez-y, on vous entend.
Allô?
On
Ok,
vous
merci.
entend.
Bon, ma préoccupation concernait les différentes plateformes et surtout sur l'aspect sécuritaire en principe. J'ai vu la façon dont les pages sautent avec le piratage et consorts. Est-ce que on aura un module concernant la sécurisation des données et consorts? Puisque quelqu'un peut avoir un projet bien construit et tout ça, et du jour au lendemain, il se retrouve, vu la précarité dont nous produisons nos pages souvent, ça peut sauter avec tout ce qu'il y a dedans. C'est très souvent le cas. Et ça, ma première préoccupation. Et la deuxième, ça concerne le système de monétisation. Est-ce que certaines plateformes, le système de monétisation concernant peut-être les cartes numériques, les cartes bancaires numériques, là, c'est que on fait au niveau des au niveau d'Internet, on vend à des prix moins chers là. Y a-t-il un danger à utiliser cela pour booster ces pages ou bien? C'est là mes deux préoccupations. Merci.
D'accord, merci, merci. Quoi, Zanaï? Quoi, Zanaï? Vous m'entendez?
Yes, thank you very much. I'm finding this session very informative.
Okay.
I like the presentation when it refers to starting early, introducing digital skills to the young and escalating until we get to highly specialized levels. I would like to draw attention to the need to also look at the attitude, perception, and the environment. Yes, digital platforms bring hope for the future, but we would be blind if we don't refer to how much data and time our young people are spending on pornographic sites. We also need to also come online about the environment where the get-rich culture is undermining all these beautiful efforts and policy initiatives, and the emergence of prosperity, gospel, and religious movements taking away the creativity and innovation of our young. Lastly, as we go through policy, we also need to look at the challenge of bridging the generation gap, because we, the older people, the decision makers and owners of capital and resources, are in a totally different world, and this can frustrate our youth. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Julien Zongo. Julien Zongo.
Interesting.
Ok, merci pour la présentation. Et maintenant, nous savons tous que l'essor du numérique offre beaucoup d'opportunités considérables pour l'entrepreneuriat. Mais maintenant, ce que nous ne faisons pas, c'est Et il crée également des inégalités où les populations marginalisées sont souvent les plus exclues de ce écosystème, se trouvant face à des obstacles majeurs. Donc maintenant, je me posais la question s'il n'est pas crucial d'examiner comment les politiques peuvent-ils jouer un rôle actif pour réduire cette facture et favoriser une inclusion plus équitable. Maintenant, c'était ma question que je voulais poser. Et vous m'entendez?
Merci.
OK. Vous avez fini, non?
Et oui, oui.
OK,
Ouais, je
merci,
le
merci.
pose. Et ma question, c'est que de quelle manière les politiques publiques peuvent-elles contribuer à réduire la fracture numérique et à favoriser
D'ac-
l'inclusion des populations
D'accord,
marginalisées dans l'écosystème de l'entrepreneuriat numérique?
d'accord. Merci. Sadio Kamara? Sadio Kamara?
Yes,
OK,
I'm here. Thank you
OK.
for giving me the floor. I would also like to join my fellow participants to thank both presenters for those very important presentations. One is a contribution or a comment. I want to thank the professor for throwing light on the fact that youth themselves are not homogeneous. They are not a homogeneous group. I'm saying this because just yesterday, I shared a link with a group of youths and women, and for them to benefit from a particular program, which is trade fair. They were going to be giving free stalls to participate. But when they wanted to apply, the restriction is they are not registered, and these are youths who are in the rural areas. So they're not homogeneous groups. They have their special needs and they have their different challenges. The challenge there is they don't even have access to get registered with the Attorney General Chambers. So they have their own problems. And I want to thank the professor for for setting light on that. The second one is I want the professor to help me here. Where in a country where the key players he talked about, or the key stakeholders, which is the government, the market or the private sector, and the civil society, if there is a weak synergy or a weak coordination among them, what is the impact on youth employability and entrepreneurship? Thank you. Over.
Serge Pakom Kwame? Serge? Serge Pakom? OK. Jean-Baptiste?
Merci. Je tiens à dire merci aux différents présentateurs et puis l'équipe qui organise cette section. Il y a deux questions relatives à la question des jeunes et par la même occasion sur le secteur informel. Ma première question est la suivante. Aujourd'hui, dans les données statistiques, je vois que la tranche d'âge varie. Tantôt, on parle de 20 à 24 ans. Et dans certains documents, on parle de 15 à 24 ans. J'aimerais savoir quelle données, si jamais nous voulons conduire des études ou bien faire des propositions de projets, quelle est la tranche d'âge que nous pouvons considérer dans notre proposition? De deux, il est constaté qu'en Afrique de l'Ouest, je dirais de manière générale en Afrique, le secteur informel absorbe pas mal de jeunes et de femmes, je dirais. C'est-à-dire la plupart des jeunes et des femmes travaillent dans le secteur informel. Et j'aimerais savoir comment est-ce que chaque gouvernement pourrait interagir ou bien agir de manière individuelle pour améliorer l'écosystème de ce secteur-là afin de le réguler et puis le rendre encore plus, je dirais, plus attractif avec la question de la digitalisation. Merci.
Merci, parfait. Je pense qu'il faut répondre, il est midi déjà. Allô? Parfait?
Oui.
OK.
très rapidement, la question sur l'aspect sécuritaire, je peux la donner à Jean-Moïse, s'il peut, parce qu'il s'agit d'une question technique sur la sécurisation des données, etc. Bon, il y a la question de notre sœur qui porte sur tous ce que j'ai appelé les effets secondaires et néfastes, la pornographie, des mouvements religieux, le capitalisme à outrance, etc. Il y a tout un volet, l'écart générationnel, il y a tout un volet culturel et social de cette transition vers l'économie numérique qu'il y a à gérer. Il y a une réflexion à mener au niveau régional et puis maintenant au niveau des pays. Comment définir des objectifs qui puissent maintenir, c'est le même problème que posait si vous vous rappelez des ouvrages en Ouest-Afrique, Cheikh Hamidou Kane, Sembene Ousmane, qui se posaient la question de savoir ce que l'éducation apporte à l'Afrique et dans quelle mesure ce qu'elle apporte renverse les valeurs qui existaient à l'époque, dans quelle mesure ce que nous aimons dans nos jeunes aujourd'hui va être complètement transformé. C'est exactement le même problème de mutation technologique sous un background de transformation culturelle. Et donc, il faut négocier cette transition-là au mieux en tenant compte de la résilience des cultures africaines. Donc, c'est toute une conversation à mener. Je ne sais pas si vous aviez l'intention de... C'est tout un débat qui ne peut pas rentrer dans le cadre de ce module, mais c'est des points importants à relever que nous allons essayer de relever dans nos conclusions. Julien Zongo parlait de comment favoriser une inclusion équitable. C'est extrêmement important. Il faut penser à cela à tous les stades du processus. Et c'est là l'objectif du cadran que j'ai dessiné avec cette diversité des jeunes en termes de ressources et s'assurer qu'à tous les niveaux, l'État prévoit des subventions pour amener les jeunes qui ont déjà des talents et des motivations, mais qui n'ont pas de ressources. Faire attention de manière privilégiée aux plus démunis, aux régions les plus défavorisées, pour s'assurer qu'il y a un certain équilibre dans la transition vers cette économie numérique. Voilà, les jeunes ne sont pas un groupe homogène, dit Sarjo. Quel est l'impact s'il y avait synergie sur l'emploi des jeunes? C'est exactement le thème du module 7 qui va porter sur l'évaluation. Et donc, je vous donne rendez-vous la semaine prochaine pour discuter exactement des questions d'impact. Quel est l'impact qu'on peut observer au niveau des changements dans l'emploi des jeunes, qui est le bottom line? La question sur la tranche d'âge utile, elle est difficile à répondre. Dans l'absolu, il n'y a pas de limite qui puisse marcher pour tout le monde. Parfois même, il est mieux de penser en termes de stade dans le cycle de vie. Donc, en termes du niveau d'éducation atteint, en termes de situation dans l'emploi, on se trouve. Et c'est dans ce contexte que nous avons pensé surtout aux NEET, aux jeunes qui ont déjà un certain niveau de formation, mais qui se trouvent en période de ballottage où ils n'ont pas encore d'emploi, ils recherchent un emploi, ils ont des compétences, mais ils en voudraient d'autres et ils sont à un stade de leur vie, ils doivent faire beaucoup de décisions qui concernent leur vie familiale et affective, leur engagement social, la migration ou pas, leur santé, la prise de risques, etc., etc. Donc, c'est plus le stade dans le cycle de vie qu'une délimitation étroite en termes d'âge. Voilà, je vais m'arrêter là. Jean-Moïse?
Oui, alors justement, je vais revenir aux deux questions de Nourou. La première, c'est pour la sécurisation. Un moyen assez simple, c'est d'utiliser des authentificators comme Google Authenticator. Ce sont des plateformes très souvent gratuites qui permettent qu'à chaque fois que votre compte ou votre adresse se connecte sur un site important, vous recevez sur votre smartphone une notification à valider. Et si vous ne la validez pas, le compte reste fermé. C'est une bonne solution pour éviter le piratage. Vous avez parlé de la sécurité des cartes numériques prépayées. La carte numérique prépayée en elle-même, si vous l'achetez chez un fournisseur fiable et reconnu, une institution bancaire, elle est fiable. le danger peut être le site sur lequel vous allez acheter. Donc ça, il faut être vigilant, notamment s'assurer qu'on est bien sur le bon site, par exemple google.com et non google.co.com. Voilà. Voilà 2 éléments de réponse. J'espère que c'est utile.
Allô? Parfait.
Oui.
Oui.
Allô, Zenab?
Oui, oui, oui.
Mhm.
C'est bon, on a fini la session d'aujourd'hui ou bien?
Oui, je crois que c'est bien.
Vous voulez encore répondre?
Non, je crois que
Bon, voilà.
on peut arrêter là. Il y a
Voilà,
encore des
c'était-
mains. S'ils peuvent mettre leurs questions en annexe, nous avons noté quelques questions et nous allons essayer d'apporter des compléments de réponse. Nous avons un petit backlog dans les réponses aux questions, mais nous allons répondre d'ici la session prochaine.
D'accord. Merci. Merci, parfait, à Jean Moïse. Voilà, c'était une bonne session. Donc, juste pour rappeler aux participants que vendredi, aussi, on a un webinaire donc, avec les membres de la communauté de pratique du cours sur la protection sociale. Voilà. Donc, vendredi, même heure. Je vais envoyer un email pour rappeler ça. Donc, merci à tous. Allez sur la plateforme où les modules sont là-bas en français et en anglais, ainsi que les enregistrements. Voilà. Merci. Merci à tous. Thank you everyone for being here. So you can go on the platform. The modules and recordings are available both in English and French. Thank you. So
Merci. Bon.
Friday we have the webinar with some members of the Committee of Practice for the course on social protection. So I hope you all be there same time Friday. I'll be sending a reminder. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.